Hello everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you're having an amazing day. Happy Monday to you, if there is such a thing. We're taking a look here at Bitcoin, and once again, I hope your family and you had, your family is well, and you had a wonderful weekend. So before we get started, just so you know, if you are new to the channel, not a financial advisor, I really just love teaching people to trade. So hopefully you can learn something here today. My goal is to help you become a better trader. So if you would like that, of course, for yourself, CryptoCache.tech is a site, link in the description below. Feel free to reference that if you want to attend my trading academy. Got a lot of folks coming over it now because of the market conditions. They're trying to learn as much as they can when the market's down. Honestly, the best time to learn. Furthermore, I have signals that I send out for every single trade that I take. While we're not taking a lot of trades recently, we're very successful in that regard, and things have been going very consistent. So it's a nice experience there, and obviously you want to be part of the community too. CryptoCache.tech is a site. So taking a look here at Bitcoin, simply put, it's fairly straightforward. Today's a red day, and it's a Monday, right? Big surprise, those things happen. Now we do have an ascending type of pattern here that you can see on the 4 hour that effectively is getting tested, likely going to be broken here soon. So again, that implies that we're going to start, that we're creating lower lows now, and that there is potential for downside. Now, how much further downside? Hard to say specifically, but 20,000 has proven to hold, minus this one dip down below, pretty well since it's broken back up above. So again, just something to kind of think about. 20,000 should be the bottom in the immediate future if it continues to sell off. But right now, at this point, we're down about 3.5% in the last 4 hour candlestick, which is more technically about the last hour, but that's neither here nor there. All right, so taking a look here at some standard stuff. We're not going to worry about the monthly or the weekly, and future reference, we're under some key level indicators, and we're obviously bearish in the overall sense of things. All right, and then the other thing to kind of drive home is that we are, this descending trend line is running concurrent with the 50-day SMA, and that's a very consistent support or resistance. Right now, of course, we're below, so it's a resistance. So generally speaking, what that just means for us here is that until we get back up above, somewhere in this area here, we're going to be in a position here where we just we're probably going to be stuck underneath it. Okay. In other words, we can expect further downside until we break that trend. That's essentially what we're looking at. All right. So again, that's kind of where we're at there. Pretty obvious stuff. I know. I mentioned this a lot, but just like to make sure you guys are familiar with that. All right, so taking a look here, of course, we're up over 30 on the RSI, which is helpful. You can see that 30 on the RSI is reflectant in most cases of 20,000 on the price point here. In other words, the chart's telling us 20,000 is a strong support level. If the price were to come down and retest 30, it'd be retesting that support at about 20,000 and should likely hold. And when I say should likely hold, it's just that, anytime in the past, when we see the RSI come below 30, when it does that, it has a tendency of coming back up and staying above for quite some time. It rarely will dip down a second time. It's very unusual for that to happen. So I don't speculate us losing 20,000 in the immediate future. Perhaps in time, RSI comes back up to closer to 50, gets rejected and comes back down. We might see a 14,000 or a price point in that range eventually. But for right now, we're not in bad shape in that sense. I don't think we should expect it to just drop like a rock. We do still have a MACD convergence. We saw that recently, of course. That is lending itself to this ascending type of pattern that we're seeing here. And it's really just kind of letting us know that, hey, we are still making higher lows technically still, right? If you look at this here, previous couple of days, we saw close right at about 20,000 and hasn't gone below since. So we're still technically making higher lows. I know it kind of seems like a stretch, but it's still true. Shorter time frames, different story, but that is essentially what we're looking at there. Taking a look at the 4 hour, touch base here as well. We're kind of trending above and below the 50-day SMA. As you can see, this is per usual, 50-day SMA working itself upwards with a trend line. So this may still hold. There's no guarantees it's going to break down below. It doesn't look great, but it definitely doesn't look terrible. All right, so again, we're kind of in that fair to Midland state. So I'm not really super worried or concerned about the moving averages. What I don't like is that we're under 50 on the RSI here, and that does lend itself to imply that we might actually stay below for some time. In other words, we broke above 50 on the RSI previously, and it lasted roughly 4 trading days, or maybe just say more so 3 trading days. So keep that in mind. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're underneath key level resistance because this candlestick hasn't closed yet, but we kind of are if you think about it. So again, we lost this previous price point here, and if we take a look, we are establishing lower lows now. Okay, and they are, of course, followed by lower highs. So if that pattern continues, for obvious reasons, it's going to continue to go lower. So we want to pay attention to that and see where this next dip or increase goes to and how far it will go, because that'll help us understand that. But being under 50 on the RSI for now, even though this candlestick hasn't closed, we got an hour and a half left before it closes, we're still not looking great. It's not a good start to a Monday. It's a very standard start to a Monday though, because you got to think about it this way. Take a look here. Price was right here at about 17.5, no less than 9 days ago. So even up to the current price point, that's a gain of 16%. And at its highest point, almost 22%. So do you think the whales are not going to take their profits anytime soon? I mean, you just got to think about it. We maintained a decent price point over the weekend and couldn't pass this resistance level here at about 21,700, and we got rejected. Price is coming back down. So it's not really a surprise to see this. It's very standard, very common for Mondays. So just kind of be ready for those kind of things on Mondays and Fridays. They have a tendency of being some really obnoxious selling and buying habits. Once again, industry leaders, the whales, they're back in business and they are controlling the market. They're going where they want with this. That being said, though, as far as where it's going next, we can still see, again, lower highs and lower lows on the hourly as well as the 4 hour. So that does mean that we could and should likely see the same thing continue on the daily. In other words, what happens on the 1 hour moves over to the 4 hour, 4 hour to the daily. So it kind of, it's filtering in there, so to speak, with these lower lows and lower highs. So if this continues for another 24, 48 hours, we're going to start seeing, or likely see 20,000 retested once more. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that. The price does come back down to 20,000. There's a handful of other things that could possibly happen. We'll look at patterns at that time. You could argue that we have, maybe potential double bottom forming. I've seen some ugly double bottoms before, but they can happen too. All right. Again, I don't like to look for patterns on the 1 hour time frame. I think it's more appropriate to look at them on the 4 hour or the daily, just because they're more consistent, because these are shorter time movements. But generally speaking, that's kind of what we're looking at. Take a look at TD sequential though. Let's see here. We likely got a reset. Yeah, we got up to, let's see here, 1 down to a 4 up to an 8. So we did hit an 8 here recently, which is kind of uncharacteristic in the sense that we've really only been hitting 5s, 6s, and 7s previously. So for us to hit an 8 recently, that was all well and good, but that kind of, that was something that broke the camel's back, right? I forget the term, I'm sorry. But it's essentially allowed the price action to decrease because we had this, right about 8 to 9 hours worth of continuation to the upside. So when you see that much continuation, the likelihood of it turning around and pulling back is quite high. So in that same sentiment, if we have that same thought process, we're at a 4 right now, we hypothetically have at least 5 more hours of downside before this could possibly reverse. Again, there's no guarantees in this, but it does increase your odds of understanding if something is over-exhausted to whichever direction. And that's essentially what we're looking at. That's what the relative strength index does as well. It tells us, hey, we're getting close to 30, and therefore we might see a pullback soon. All right, so we're about halfway into this downside potential. Taking a look at the cloud, though, this is probably going to be the most important one here. And we can see that we absolutely lost the cloud. We came down below, kind of essentially held it, but we still inevitably lost it. And right now, based on the lagging span being super free and clear of any price action, long position is absolutely something you want to avoid at this point. Based on the simple fact that this is telling us conservatively, hey, if you got a short position open, you leave it open, because this hasn't intersected yet. And it's going to take almost a full 24 hours before we see that connect. In other words, unless the price ramps back up in the immediate future, there's really no reason to want to close your position and to consider a long position for the moment. But of course, dollar cost average, if you decide you want to do that, it's perfectly fine. But on the same accord, make sure you're careful and cautious on what you invest in and when you invest in it. Because right now it doesn't look like it's going to return and recover anytime soon. Again, next 4 or 5 hours, perhaps, when we get some nice consolidation at this price point here, we should be in pretty good shape. Okay, so again, the cloud is not really telling us anything in the regard of taking a long position. There's no green lights there. There's pretty much all green lights on a short position. Once again, not saying you should take a short position, but if you have one open, you leave it open. If you do take a short position, make sure you have a really tight take profit targets to ensure that you take your profits and get where you need to go, obviously in a short amount of time. because the price does continue lower. There's no guarantees we're going to hit 20,000 right away before we might see another potential higher low or lower high. So in that sense, you may want to just kind of remain patient, or again, have a pretty tight take profit target setup. With our trade setups, we usually have 5 take profit targets, trading stop loss, and in most cases a stop loss as well. That kind of just it moves when you hit your target. So as soon as you hit target number 2, it triggers, and then if the price comes back to break even, it closes the trade, leaving you in profit for that 60, 70, 80%. So it's a really cool system. Definitely recommend some trading bots if you don't already do that, because they just make things so much easier, but also helps you trade better because it allows for you to instill that best practice. Again, really cool stuff. Be happy to obviously show you the ropes if you decide you want to become a community member. Once again, CryptoCache.tech is the website. So honestly here, I mean, in summary, my thoughts here is that this descending trend hasn't been officially broken yet, even though it doesn't look great so far. So we can't rule out another potential retest of 21,700, and then the price coming back up, right? That is still potential. But for right now, the micro, the 3 hour, sorry, the 1 hour and the 4 hour, those are both telling us a completely different story. They're painting the picture that we're moving to the downside here, and for how long, it's hard to say specifically. I would say 5 more hours would probably be a worst case scenario before we see another attempt to increase the value and to get back to where we started here today. But again, the trading day is still early. We've got a lot of trading left, of course. I would say where the candlestick closes today here, the 1-day candlestick, will tell us kind of a lot, and if we're still moving upwards or not. But in truth, we're making higher lows on the daily, but we're making lower highs on the hourly, right? So again, if that continues, we'll be seeing a very similar pattern on the daily as well. So at this point, I would just say, sometimes no trade is a good trade, and it might be best just to kind of either wait this one out or consider a tight short position, because that does seem more viable at this point, considering just the overall direction here and where things are going. All right. So again, that's kind of where we're at there. Hopefully this made sense and it's practical. If so, comment below. Let me know if you want to become a better trader, or just honestly let me know your feedback too. I deeply appreciate it. Good, bad, and different. It's nice to know kind of just roughly where we're at there. And I got a lot of folks that are thinking that this is the bottom, but I don't think the bottom is truly in just yet. We need more time to figure it out. All right. So again, try not to get too optimistic here at this point. But on the same chord, don't let it take the wind out of your sails either. This is very standard Bitcoin stuff. And the sooner we get on board with the fact that it's a highly manipulated type of market, the better off you're going to be. And all we can do is increase our odds of success by trying to instill best practice, because that's where the success comes from, really. It isn't just evaluating the trades that we see here and kind of understanding which way it may or may not go. What it really is all about protecting your investment and making sure you have that right foundation of being a good trader, because most folks overlook that. They overlook their emotional status as well, and if they are emotionally stable. Those are all things that factor in. Definitely something you want to consider. Again, stuff I teach in my trading academy, but that's a conversation for another day. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Y'all take care.